What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be, discussing another episode of Chicago Bulls Weekly. Today we discuss the previous week for the Bulls, as short as it was, discuss some key awards that need to be given out, and ultimately look forward to what could be a very, very interesting week ahead, where we've got some competition, let's say, this week. But before we get any further, if you like the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts about these Chicago Bulls, their previous week and their upcoming week that we have to look forward to. So, I mentioned it was a short week for the Bulls. We played 2 games. We went 1-1. Both games weren't necessarily the most exciting games you'll ever watch. Both games were not offensive-minded. Defensively, I think we're okay in both of them, but still, you have to kind of look at the other teams and how poor they were shooting. I think that's a factor in it as well. It started off with Philadelphia. We were up for this game, I'm pretty sure, but we did lose in the end, 108-100. Philly did have a lot of their guys back, so that is something to give credit to the Bulls for sticking with them when they had Joel Embiid and they had Paul George and they had Maxey and they had all these other guys. Basically, that is their full-fledged Philadelphia 76ers team. I actually think that was their first win with all 3 of those guys together, Paul George, Maxey, and Joel Embiid. I could be wrong there, but either way, it wasn't a great game from the Bulls. I thought we were very stagnant, very slow, very mediocre in the end. And that is something that I think kind of translated over into the Charlotte Hornets game. But we did win that Charlotte Hornets game, 109-95. Again, very similar, I would say. The Bulls shot 51 threes in this one, and again, it kind of just made me miss old school basketball, where we weren't just spamming threes each and every single possession. At certain times when we weren't making them, we should have went away with it and did something else, maybe get to the line a little bit, maybe even take a couple mid-ranges or get to the paint a little bit more. I just felt like what we did was stick to the three-point shot and just hoped that it went in. And thankfully, we did it versus a great team in the Charlotte Hornets who had no LaMelo Ball in there, so we could have got away with it against them. But if we versus Philadelphia, if we versus the Boston Celtics, we have coming up very soon, if we versus any other team, almost any other team in the NBA, a game like that would be unacceptable. That's honestly what I would feel about that game. So, to win it, fine. I'm happy with a win. I'll always be happy with a win. But let's not pretend that the Chicago Bulls came out there and stole the show. They definitely didn't do that. And again, they became very stagnant in that game. But a win is a win. With that being said, there are awards to give. Defensive Player of the Week, Sixth Man of the Week, Must Improve of the Week, and Player of the Week in general. These ones are a little bit tougher because I feel like this team has, at least with the 2 games they have played, they've earned a Defensive Player of the Week award. I know it's not by a lot, but I still feel like it is something to give them for, I think, a job well done for the most part. Now, I think the Defensive Player of the Week could go to a lot of guys. From Lonzo Ball to Ayo Dosunmu to even Jalen Smith. I thought Jalen Smith had a very underrated defensive week with the amount of blocks he was able to get up, showed some rim protection, especially against the Charlotte Hornets. So it is very difficult, but I am going to give it to Ayo Dosunmu. I think Ayo Dosunmu has had a fantastic defensive week. I think Lonzo Ball probably had the standout with the steal to the lob to Zach LaVine. That's obviously the standout play, but I think overall defensively, Ayo Dosunmu has been very solid, very consistent, has been our best defender this season. To be fair, Lonzo has been out, so it's kind of not necessarily his fault or anything like that. But I think this week, it should go to Ayo Dosunmu. Lonzo Ball, I think, is in there as well. Even guys like Matas Bazelas had a couple of blocks in there. Defensively, we weren't too bad this week. And you have to keep that up in the next few weeks, especially when you verse the teams that you face. Defensively, you have to be solid. You cannot give up 130 points in a game. Let's hope we've truly turned over a new leaf in that area. But for the first time in a while, yes, I will give this team a Defensive Player of the Week award. Congratulations to Ayo Dosunmu. But then we lead to a very interesting award in of itself, and that is the Must Improve. Very difficult decision here, ladies and gentlemen, but you know what? I don't know. The thing is, I kind of feel bad for bringing this player into it because there were a couple of games before he got some minutes in this week that I personally felt like, it stunted him a little bit. He was very good for a lot of his time with the Bulls, and then all of a sudden he stopped playing. And then when he stopped playing, obviously that kind of momentum can swing, and now he's just kind of been somewhat okay for the Chicago Bulls. I just want to quickly check what he had against Philly before I say who it is, but you guys already know who I'm going to talk about here. It's Talen Horton-Tucker. I think I would give it to him. Now, the reason why is just because personally I feel like we have seen him do more, so I expect more out of him. But once again, he's not playing, ladies and gentlemen. That Philadelphia game I just mentioned, he had 6 minutes in that game and he had 3 points in those 6 minutes. It's not necessarily his fault, if you know what I mean. In fact, you could probably give this must improve award to the coaching staff because of that. I do blame Talen Horton-Tucker's, I guess, recent performances, whether they've been somewhat irrelevant or somewhat not present. I put that on the coaching staff because I don't know how you give our best bench scorer, who was absolutely thriving in those few games that he was playing, you give him less minutes and all of a sudden now he's just not the same player as he was because the confidence isn't there and the opportunities isn't there either. It's a real shame. But Talen Horton-Tucker is my must improve. I'm sure there could be a couple of guys. I personally think Nikola Vucevic is someone else you could add to this conversation. Didn't play in that last game against the Hornets and was very, very, very mediocre against the Philadelphia 76ers. So Vucevic would be up there, but he only played one game, so I don't want to give him that award either. The list can go on. A couple of bench players I thought didn't play very well. So yeah, you can toss and turn with who you want. It's very hard to give. Now, my sixth man of the week. This one should be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. So, obviously, you got guys like Jalen Smith, who had an 11-point performance against the Philadelphia 76ers, but he also started in that game against the Charlotte Hornets. I actually think, and this is really, really hard to say, because I don't think our bench was that great this week. I think our best bench player this week is Lonzo Ball. I really think it is. Put it this way, I think defensively against the Philadelphia 76ers, he was okay. Granted, he didn't have the best stat line offensively, and then he played very well against the Hornets. I think the next person you could give it to beside him is probably Matas Buzelis. So I would say those two are probably in contention for this. Our bench wasn't great this week. It's probably a huge factor why we're not scoring as much as we have been. You know, it's simple as that. But yeah, I'd give it to Lonzo Ball personally. The player of the week for me is probably... This one is a little bit tough as well. I would probably give it to Zach LaVine. 30 points, 3 assists against Philadelphia. He didn't necessarily have a great game against the Hornets, from my recollection. Wasn't necessarily great in almost every way. He had 13 points and 3 assists in that game. But again, I just felt like no one was really consistent this week. I mean, Ayo had 19 points. Maybe Ayo could get this award. But I like Zach LaVine's 30-point performance in a game against Philly where we desperately needed him to score. He really gave us a lifeline in that game. Maybe that's why I'm referring to him as player of the week. But yeah, I just personally felt like there were a couple of guys... I don't know. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult. You know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to give it to Josh Giddey. I think Josh Giddey deserves it. I'm just trying to think about it in my head, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I think Josh Giddey's performance against the Hornets was easily the best performance out of everybody that played this week. So that's probably what I'm leaning towards there. And then I don't necessarily think he had the worst game against the Philadelphia 76ers either. So yeah, I would probably give it to Josh Giddey. It changed my minds there. With that being said, we've got an upcoming game against the Toronto Raptors, the 7-15, if I'm not mistaken, Toronto Raptors. A team that I feel like we have the edge against, especially if we do have guys healthy in this game. Toronto is a team that's always given us problems, but this is not the same Toronto team you have experienced in the playing tournament last year, or even through 2 years ago when they were double-teaming DeMar DeRozan every possession. It's just not the same Toronto Raptors team. So I do expect the Bulls to give a big, good effort in this time out, and we'll see if we can walk away with a victory there. And then our next 2 games after that for the week are both against Boston. Away from home first, and then at home second. Now, Boston is the NBA champions. We've already lost to them recently. It was a close and competitive game in that time out where the score kind of got built up a bit because it was an NBA Cup game. That's all fine and good. We versed them twice. I honestly, because again, I think it's very difficult to beat a team twice in a row, let alone 3 times in a season. I'm really hoping the Bulls can steal a win from Boston at least once. So with that being said, I'm going to predict the Bulls to win 2 games this week, and I'm going to be optimistic about it. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.